Doing pretty good. How are you?
Oh, not bad, not bad. My question mainly had to do with spirituality and afterlife, I guess.
So I don't know what spirituality really means. But
All right, would you like me to kind of give you my definition of it then?
Sure.
Well, for me, I guess a little bit of background here. I used to be a really, really strong believer fundamentalist believer in the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
And the three sources, kind of like your show, and the couple others like the Skeptic's Annotated Bible, I kind of saw my way out of that. But I still had sort of a belief in the afterlife, and I kind of use that to mean spirituality, because I don't know if there is anything there, but I'd kind of...
So you're equating? For you, the afterlife is spirituality? Can we just dump the word spirituality entirely and talk about the afterlife and whether or not we have good reason to believe it?
Yeah, no problem.
Cool. I mean, if they're the same. So...
All right, yeah.
What reason do you think we might have to think that there's something beyond life?
Basically, the reason that I've had is I can't prove any way that this goes, but I've had a couple experiences that we've recorded and found in my house with cameras, and basically it kind of shows things that can't be explained, at least to our knowledge.
Okay, if something can't be explained, you don't get to say that it is evidence for an afterlife, because you don't have an explanation. If you don't know what it is that you've seen, how could it possibly be evidence for an afterlife?
You know what? That's actually a good point. I've always just kind of believed it to be kind of like a spirit doing it.
Yeah, I mean, so you let's just say you recorded some phenomena like we'd see on the History Channel, as I vomit a little into my mouth, and you have something where it's unexplained. Isn't that where we should stop until we have an explanation?
Yeah, I guess that's a good point, because if you don't have an explanation, you can't really investigate it.
I can actually go one better when it comes to the afterlife, because I think the idea of an afterlife, or at least the idea of a soul, is, pun intended, the most dead topic in all of religion. And the reason for that is, what about me survives my death or could survive my death? Now, I'm walking, talking, I have preferences and memories. Everything that seems to make me is identifiable in my brain. It's not only identifiable, it's malleable. I can suffer brain trauma and lose all of my memories, lose the ability to make new memories. I can fundamentally have my personality changed. I can develop, multiples of these conditions at once, to the point where it could potentially be argued that I'm a new person. What's worse than that, and I would recommend looking up a talk from V.S. Ramachandran. It's probably about 9 years old at this point, where he's a neuroscientist, and on occasion they will sever the corpus callosum for people suffering from, I think it's strong epileptic seizures, so that the two hemispheres of the brain can no longer communicate with each other. And they do studies on those patients, because you know how like the right side of your brain controls your left arm and the left side controls your right arm, and one half of your brain will be able to control your speech center, but the other one can't?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So in a case where they severed the corpus callosum, they end up with two distinct personalities communicating independently. One of them is able to talk, and the other one is able to use whichever hand is associated with that half of the brain. The specifics don't matter. And one half of that, or one of the two personalities, or half a person, I don't know. How do you do math with that? Are there two halves of a soul now? Did one half get the soul and the other one didn't? Because what happened is one of those two communicating entities believed in a God, and the other one didn't. And what's worse is, what if the one that believed in the God isn't the one that has a soul?
Uh-oh.
Now, if we can manipulate parts of the brain to fundamentally change things about who we are, where's there any room left in that model for a soul? If I can go out and take actions, my soul could be maybe unable to communicate through my brain. And so now I'm out taking actions that would damn me to somebody's hell. My soul can't seem to do anything about it because it's just along for the ride. It's no longer controlling things. Or, and that's in the case when you've got the split brain patients, there's no way that this makes sense, because what does the soul do? What does it add to this? And how does it work when we know that altering a brain alters a person?
Well, I guess it's just brain chemistry at that point, if there's really no way you can prove a soul if your brain can change that much.
And yeah, so if there's no room left for a soul, and we don't have any good reason to believe it, everything we've attributed to a soul, apart from it being able to survive the body, is identifiable, not fully understood, but identifiable as a function of the brain. And you can't argue that, well, your spirit, your soul, inhabits your brain and is the ghost in the machine manipulating things, if physically changing the brain changes you. So given what we know about neuroscience, which isn't complete, at a minimum we can say we see no possible space for a soul within any of the brain models that we have now.
Well, I guess for me, it just kind of never really, clicked in my head that, hey, there's really, this whole concept of a soul doesn't really, there's no reason for it. I never really that never clicked to me until now.
Okay.
Well, and I'm curious, you mentioned kind of strange events occurring, and Matt kind of alluded to it earlier, but what was it about those events that made you think it was a spirit as opposed to some other force that you didn't, understand at the time, like an earthquake or something else?
Well, I'll just give one example. We had this camera set up to record in our house at night, and one of them you could see when I was walking, and it didn't happen one time. It happened about 3 or 4 times over the course of a couple months. And we go back and see it because it would show when there was movement. It was like these blue dots, kind of like orbs that some of my family says that those are spirits. You could see them kind of like moving around and like.
Did anybody in your family suggest that might be particles of dust?
No.
So one thing is you're looking at footage through a camera lens, which fundamentally alters things and can create illusions. Are you familiar with Pepper's ghost?
No, actually, I've never heard of that.
Cool. Well, look up Pepper's ghost. It wouldn't fool anybody today, or almost anybody. There's ways. Let me retract that. There are ways to make Pepper's ghost fool people, but basically, it uses a piece of glass on an angle, either in a hallway or above the orchestra pit, stuff like that. And by manipulating light, you can make ghostly figures appear. Now, once upon a time, based on what we knew about light refraction and stuff like that, it's understandable that people might have suspected, oh, there are ghosts walking around here on stage. Isn't it likely that there's something about recording with a camera and a lens in different light conditions that could produce things like orbs that you just haven't bothered to study to figure out, oh, this is a dust particle?
Yeah, I guess that's very likely. I'd always kind of been skeptic about it when it came to like flash photography. I always thought it was like the flash that created it, but I never really thought before that it could be like a dust particle.
Well, so one of the things you got to consider is you've got a lens and you've got perspective. And in much the same way, like if you consider like the mountain valley illusion, your brain does things to what it sees. It makes an assessment of the light to determine whether you're looking at a mountain or a valley, and there's ways to trick that, which is why we have optical illusions. So you can do it with color as well. There's pictures of Rubik's cubes where there's a brown square and an orange square that are clearly different until you put them right next to each other and you find out they're the exact same hue. Your brain does not create an accurate picture of reality. It is constantly interpreting. And one of the things that's difficult to interpret in a two-dimensional plane, as on this thing here, is which of my two hands, well, you probably can't see the screen, which of my two hands is closer to you right now? It may be that you're watching on a screen that's small enough that you really can't tell that it's my left hand that's closer to the screen. But what's worse is, if a dust particle flies in front of the lens fairly close, it's blurry because it's not the subject of focus. And if your brain tries to make sense of that, it can be viewed in two different ways. It could be viewed as a dust particle that's close and out of focus, and that's why it's got this ghostly halo thing around it. Or it could be a ghostly orb that's 10, 12 feet away. How do you tell the difference? You got to actually know a little bit about optics and do some investigation. And I would say that, hey, I saw some orbs, and to use your own words, people in my family said they were spirits. Well, do people in your family have any expertise in this area?
No.
Yeah. So the time to believe that there are spiritual orbs or that there are ghosts or anything else is after we have sufficient evidence to justify that. If you just say, well, I can't think of anything, and somebody said that it was a spirit, so I'll go with that, I think you're being insufficiently skeptical.
You know what? I guess I'd agree with you on that one. I never really thought about it in that way.
Dig in a little bit. Some of this stuff's really interesting. Look up some information about Pepper's Ghost and optical illusions. And one of the things, this is something that myself and a bunch of my skeptic friends strongly object to, is the History Channel used to, I don't know, once upon a time talk about history. and now it's all this ghost hunter crap. And
Nazi hunters, too.
No, ghost hunters, Nazi hunters. Well, Nazis are ghosts now. Nazi ghost hunters. The thing is, there are people who want to believe and are convinced of something, but there's also people who want to make money taking advantage of the people who want to believe. And there's not really a network that airs, here's why Ghost Hunters is garbage as a regular show. But you may find some skeptics on YouTube who have done the work and dig around a bit. But at the end of the day, even if you decide you're not that interested in investigating it, at least keep that in the forefront of your mind, because at a minimum, you should be able to acknowledge that you shouldn't be reaching the conclusions you're reaching, and perhaps shouldn't be reaching any conclusion at all because you don't have enough information.
Oh, yeah, of course. Definitely. After the episode's over, I'll definitely go back and rewatch and pick out the things y'all said and research it and investigate into it. And can I say one more thing real quick?
Sure.
I just want to say I love the show. I used to be a diehard Christian, but finding you on YouTube and a couple other sources are one of the things that kind of helped me, see the light and see that, I don't have to believe everything people tell me. So just want to say I appreciate that, and I'll definitely be one of those 14,000 people you need to donate. I'll probably go do that in a minute. And
thank you.
Awesome.
The Giants' best with John.
Thank you, Hunter. I appreciate the compliment, and keep investigating. It's a big, wonderful world out there with all kinds of stuff weirder than you could possibly imagine, and we maybe only know this tiny percent, which brings up a theistic argument that I think we should address real quick. John, if there's this much stuff to know about the world, and you only know this much, what if God's in this part that you don't know?
What if he is? How do I know that?
Yeah. If I know this much, and knowledge expands out to here, and God's right here, I can't be justified in accepting that a God exists until I know this part. Mm-hmm. What if there is a God out here? It's the same answer as if there's not a God out there. If you don't know all of it, well, okay, then we can't know that there's not a God. Oh, congratulations, you've now turned knowledge into absolute, complete knowledge and certainty. The point is, you can't be warranted if God exists somewhere beyond human knowledge.
And God is going to hide from you too, because if you know this much, and then you learn this over here, and God's going to jump over here, yeah. And if you learn this, he's going to jump over here. So
yeah, God's out sunbathing on Venus, and as soon as we start landing, in the right area on Venus, he's going to jump to Jupiter.
Oh, he used to be in the clouds before airplanes, and
yeah,
so
in the firmament. Funny how they don't slow down the airplanes in the firmament.